Tonight on Bog Panda, we're going to talk about the Hyperkin RetroN 3 HD Electric Boogaloo. Hi, everybody. This is Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter, Instagram, and I should have just said social media. So, on to you.
I
Fire
am
from
Dr. Mike on social media. Well, I'm official pagan on social media, but I'm Dr. See, I messed it up too.
this is just train wreck.
It's a terrible start to the show.
We'd
But you
like
know
to
what
sincerely
would
apologize.
you know what would help make everything better if you guys were to like and subscribe anyway and leave some comments encouraging us to get better for the next one.
Yes.
And a good way to help us get better is to wear some of our merch and really make us feel good about ourselves and get in the right headspace to not destroy the intro the next time like we did this time.
Yes.
And while you're at it, we do another show as well. We never mess up the intro on that one because it's too short. In fact, it's the world's shortest podcast. Hard no. It comes free with your free subscription to the Bog Panda Network.
Sadly, there's an episode of Hard Note coming out soon where you screw up the introduction.
Even as I was saying it, I was like, did we ever mess up?
Uh, we, yeah. Yep. We had a guest on and you introduced me. And tonight we're joined by Kelly. It's like, oh. Sorry, hard no spoiler, but go ahead. It's less than a minute. You're fine.
Just ruin it for everybody.
There you go. Well, this is going well. So let's just keep on rolling here. We just want to
Power
talk a
through.
little bit about, we haven't talked a lot about clone gaming consoles a lot here. We've talked a lot more probably about emulation and that activity. But there's a pretty good market out there, and there are some folks that really do enjoy taking advantage of that. And there's some interesting options out there. Hyperkin has been putting out pretty regularly a variety of series under the RetroN family with varying numbers of game slots on them. And one of the most recent ones is the RetroN 3, which, spoiler, does have the ability to play three different game. It's a clone of three different gaming consoles. So you get a Nintendo, an NES, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis. And it's a good looking machine. You can get it in a couple different color options. One of the most predominant the ones I see most of the times, are the red one. The slots run across the top. And we'll talk a little bit more about some other specifics in a second. But have you seen any of these in the wild? Is this something you've ever thought about pursuing?
Yeah, so I've never owned one, but I have seen them. I've seen them in some game stores and stuff as well. The various incarnations, and usually it's some variation of Sega and Nintendo cartridges that it takes. I've seen some mixed reviews of them. It seems like they work pretty well, though. I think where some of the mixed opinion on things comes in at is there is some games where there's some compatibility issues apparently, and I think that has more to do with like maybe unlicensed games and some aftermarket stuff where it's using like helper chips or larger ROM sizes and things like that. But to that end, I mean, I was reading people who had purchased Paprium when that finally shipped. Some people were having trouble playing that on original hardware. And they were saying that they actually recommended you play it on a system that had been upgraded with a 32X, even though it's not a 32X game, but just the extra processing power would help with the helper chips and things like that. So I think you're getting into some of that territory more than anything else. Also, too, I mean, even if it plays most of the library, Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo both had gigantic game libraries. So it's probably not that big a deal for most people, unless it unfortunately happens to be your favorite game that it's not playing. But I have used so at games used to make clone consoles. They were very cheap. This is the earlier days of at games before the Legends line and all that stuff. They were very cheap. I bought one at like a drugstore, and I think it was $15 or something like that. It mostly worked though. The video output wasn't great. It was definitely lower quality than the original system was, but again, I paid $15 for it, so it worked as well as I expected that to. And it took Genesis cartridges, and I want to say all of them worked, or if there was one that didn't, it was some like weird game that I had. But all of the major games did technically run on it. So something that is clearly higher end than those early at games things. I wouldn't expect too many issues with this. Jimmy from the Brutal Dudes podcast has, I believe, this one, the RetroN 3. There are larger models as well, like the RetroN 5, I believe it is, which if you add an adapter to it, you can play basically the full line of Nintendo and Genesis systems on there, including Master System, Game Gear, Game Boy, and Game Boy Advance are all in there, along with Genesis and Super Nintendo and NES. So with the adapter and everything, I believe that'll set you back about $200. But again, you'll be able to play almost any cartridge from that era. So I don't think that's not worth it.
Yeah, and the Retron 3 comes in around $90. And it does I think it is a clone, so you're going to potentially deal with some of the issues with the clone from everything I've kind of read and seen, read some reviews and all that. Controllers are good. You do not get an NES controller. You only get a Super Nintendo and Genesis styled controller. You do get ports for all three systems, or one in the front and the other two on either side. What it does have, the one thing I do like, there's an HDMI out as well as the AV ports out. If you're using the HDMI, it does have an aspect ratio switch so that you can get it back to the 3x4 or 4x3 aspect ratio for a lot of these games, which gets you out of that stretch, which is not always super fun.
Yeah,
So
which
that
is
stuff's
hugely important. I mean, I've been using the HDMI upscaler for the Nintendo 64, and it makes a gigantic difference.
Yeah, and it's just you can tolerate them the other way, but it is just it does make a big difference when it's at its appropriate aspect ratio. So that's good. The noise I've heard about it so far, no pun intended, has to do with the sound. Is that you're going to, if you have gotten a bit spoiled by the sound quality you'll get out of most good emulation environments or off of OG equipment, you're just not going to quit. There's going to be a little glitch. There's going to be something going on because this is a clone setup versus the actual game console or an emulation that can solve a lot of those problems usually. So you're going to get potentially some sound distortion and problems with it here and there. But it would, I mean, it's real estate friendly. Instead of having to have three systems lying around, you have the potential to only have one, which is a good thing. But uh, this kind of comes back to some of the other devices we've talked about. This isn't probably one that's going to be big on the market for me because my cartridge population here is Atari centric. So I got 2600 and 64 stuff, and I've got the original equipment to play it on. So one, I don't have a big library of the other stuff, and when I do want to experience some of that, I am one emulation environment away from experiencing it, which whether that's Super Console X or coin ops, actually sometimes some of the upper end coin ops stuff with the arcade stuff on it and console stuff, I've got options there. So it's, I'm not pulling trigger on it. It does look like it's going to be, if you're going for one of these, this isn't the $15 buy it at the drugstore one. This is going to be a little better than that. Quality wise, you could get a couple good controllers, and I think a pretty reliable system. Uh, what about you? Is this something that you feel kind of covered off on? You're not going to really need to pursue, or is it something you're going to look at a little more?
So by and large, I'm happy with emulation as well. And not only is it, more cost effective, and I'm not just talking about, illegal ROMs, which obviously we would never use, but purchasing ROMs from smaller companies who are making, indie games and things like that, who sell their ROMs on their sites. To support them, I'm all about that as well. And emulation environment for that kind of stuff usually is going to be fine for me. So I do have a bunch of Genesis cartridges. For the most part, the only thing I've really been buying cartridges for lately is the Nintendo 64. Um, because I wanted to replenish the library of games that my wife had because it was a gift for her. Then there's a handful of games that I wanted, so I've been picking those up slowly as well. And there's just still not the best emulation options. for that system. And even once the emulation will eventually catch up, I'm sure, even once it does, I'm going to be honest with you, my wife's not going to do that. We would still need a physical cartridge for her. She is not I don't even want to say tech savvy. She's not tech friendly. She's not a fan of technology and things like that. So there is no way that she's going to go in and tinker with the settings on an emulator and map controllers and things like that. So there's always going to have to be some physical option for her for that. So I don't mind building up a little bit of a cartridge library for that. There is recently, because I picked up a few cartridges of games that I wanted just to have as part of displays. So I don't know if you can see it behind me, on my guitar displays here, there's like Jason masks hanging off of each of the guitars. I love Friday the 13th stuff, and beyond just these NECA masks and things like that, I have actual like movie props from Friday the 13th. I have a Jason mask that was made by Tom Savini and things like that. So like I want to display that kind of stuff. So I bought a physical copy of Friday the 13th for Nintendo, which obviously I had before, but for years now I've only played it as an emulator game. I absolutely love that game, but didn't have the physical copy. So I purchased a physical copy of that, as well as some copies of Mortal Kombat for Game Gear and Super Nintendo, which I didn't have, so that I could put on my Mortal Kombat display behind the Mortal Kombat arcade one-up cabinet, things like that. So it would be nice to be able to pull those off of the shelf from the displays and play the physical cartridge every now and then. So if I was going to go with anything, it'd probably be the Retron 5 and might as well go out and get the adapter so I can just play anything if I really feel the need to own the cartridge for that. Also, too, I've been on this weird kick where so I never had a Master System and never played an original Master System. I have emulated the games, and a lot of the games were just directly ported to Game Gear because they're extremely similar hardware. And I played them on Game Gear, but never had a Master System. There is some great games for it, though. For whatever reason, recently, I was like, I should see if I can pick up a Master System. They are available. They're pretty steep in price, though. And the games, one of the things about Master System that gave it such an incredibly long life, especially in places like Brazil, it was pretty cost effective, some of the games and things like that. That is no longer the case. So it for me to just pick up a Master System and a couple of the games that I really like, it's going to send me back like $300 to $500 if I were to go that route. So I'm not going that route. But if with an adapter I can play Master System games on here and just pick up a game or two, that's kind of cool. I even went as far as a Tech Toy, who continued to manufacture games in Brazil and went on to make some Master System plug and play stuff like the minis and things like that. Had not had anything available on Master System for a while because they've been doing X Games products in Brazil. They've been putting out the Legend stuff in Brazil, which they manufacture there so that people don't have to pay the high import costs for the games. They recently did a new Master System model for Brazil, and it looks really cool. It is blue. It has a like 3D plastic Sonic on there with rings and things like that. It's pretty cool looking. So I emailed Tectoy and said, hey, I don't care what it costs for shipping because I figured out price wise what they were charging for it. And it was like a little over $100. And I was like, hey, I will pay a substantial amount in shipping if that's what it takes, but I would like one of these. Can we make this happen? And they responded back in the same day, letting me know, no, that's not possible. They're not able to ship them to the United States. So I don't know what the issues are with that as far as legalities and things like that, but they said they're not allowed to ship them overseas. So I was like, okay, that sucks. Then I thought the brilliant idea of what if I go on Amazon Brazil and see if I can order it that way? Because I've ordered stuff off Amazon Japan. So what if I go on Amazon Brazil? Sure enough, it's on Amazon Brazil. So signed into Amazon Brazil, added it to my cart. And when I went to check out, got hit with a notice saying this isn't allowed to be shipped to the US. So now I'm determined to have an ability to play Master System just because I'm being told that I can't.
Yeah.
other than
Well,
emulation.
and technically, if it's in Brazil, there is a land a land path. It's not you won't go over any sea. You'll be able to go right up through Mexico, and you're over canal. You've got to cross a canal, but
Over canals.
yeah, I don't think I've ever seen restriction on over canal shipping. So I think I think you need to
Yeah,
count
even
on.
even Amazon Brazil, unfortunately, I couldn't order it from. So I was checking Amazon US, maybe like somebody had one they were trying to resell, but I can't find this thing. So, and now, of course, I specifically wanted that Sonic edition because it looks awesome. Everybody who's watching this should look it up. It looks super cool. But I can't buy it.
Yeah.
So,
So
out of spite.
I have to go back and listen. Well, I know you alleged it, and it doesn't sound entirely unlike me, but and it was when we were talking about some of the At Game stuff that was being manufactured by Tectoy. I think you accused me of offending all of Brazil on that show for some reason, which again is not not something that could have happened, but it is something you could accuse me of. But I figure we're big in Brazil. So if any of the folks are watching in Brazil and allegedly I said anything bad before, you ignore that. It was Mike. But all we need to do is figure out we need to get a listener in Brazil to order it and have them ship it to us.
Yeah, that would be awesome. You
And
guys would be really awesome if you could do that.
yeah,
We would pay you money. You just have to ship, you just have to buy it and ship it out to us.
you know, yeah. So we'll have to. So we'll wait in here. Drop us a line in the comments. Let us know if you're help Mike with his Master System desires. Excellent. Well, anything else, sir, on the Retron?
No, I think that's it. So I am actually contemplating purchasing one of these. It would have to wait a little bit because we are in the market for a new vehicle. And I also have a trip to Florida that's coming up. So financially, I'm going to be strapped for a few months. So it's going to have to wait a little bit, but I could maybe see in the summer purchasing one of these and going with the Master System adapter just so spite I can buy a Master System game and be able to play the physical game.
Yeah, you're not the boss of me purchase. So
Yeah, exactly.
Bog Panda.